The moment I opened the bedroom door, I knew I had seen something I was never supposed to see. My roommate, Emma, stood frozen in front of the mirror, struggling with the zipper of a dress she had been trying to put on. Her eyes met mine through the reflection, and for a few seconds, neither of us moved. But what happened next wasn't embarrassment, anger, or the awkward silence I expected. She quietly looked down, took a shaky breath, and said, "Help me finish." I thought she meant the zipper. I had no idea those 4 words were about to reveal a secret that would change both our lives. Before we continue, if stories about kindness, second chances, and unexpected connections touch your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Sometimes, one small act of kindness can become the reason someone believes in life again. Emma and I had been roommates for almost 8 months, but we weren't exactly close. We were the kind of people who shared a kitchen, paid the bills on time, and occasionally asked each other if we needed anything from the grocery store. She was quiet, organized, and always seemed to have everything under control. I was different. After losing my job several months earlier, I had become withdrawn and frustrated, constantly calculating how long my savings would last. The apartment that once felt like a fresh start had slowly begun to feel like a waiting room for a life I couldn't get back. Emma never asked too many questions about my situation. She simply left small acts of kindness around the apartment. A cup of coffee waiting beside my laptop. A note reminding me about an interview. Once, when I admitted I couldn't afford dinner until my next paycheck, she ordered enough food for 2 and pretended she had accidentally ordered too much. I knew what she was doing, but I never thanked her properly. Pride can make even kindness difficult to accept. That evening, I had returned home earlier than expected because an interview had been cancelled. I heard music coming from Emma's room and assumed she wasn't home. Her bedroom door was slightly open, so I pushed it without thinking. Then I stopped. Emma was standing in front of the mirror wearing an elegant blue dress. She looked completely different from the woman I saw every morning in sweatpants and oversized sweaters. Her hair was carefully arranged, and there was a nervous expression on her face. She had been trying to close the back zipper, but it had caught somewhere between her shoulder blades. I immediately turned away and apologized, but instead of telling me to leave, she asked me to help. Her voice sounded strangely fragile. I stepped forward, keeping my eyes on the zipper, and carefully pulled it upward. When it finally closed, she didn't move. She simply stared at herself in the mirror. Then she whispered that she needed help finishing something else. I asked what she meant, and she reached toward the nightstand. There was a small envelope lying beside a photograph. She picked it up with trembling fingers and handed it to me. Inside was an invitation to a charity gala. I didn't understand why that made her so nervous until she told me she had been invited because of a scholarship foundation that had once helped her family. Her younger brother had been seriously ill when they were children, and the foundation had paid for treatment their parents could never have afforded. Years later, Emma had become financially successful enough to support the same organization. But there was more. She had been asked to speak at the gala. And she was terrified. Emma confessed that she had spent years pretending she was confident because people expected her to be. She had built a successful career, moved to a new city, and learned how to smile through almost anything. Yet whenever she had to stand in front of a crowd, she felt like the frightened young woman she used to be, sitting beside her brother's hospital bed and wondering whether they would lose him. For the first time, I understood why Emma had always been so quiet. She wasn't cold. She was carrying something enormous. She showed me the speech she had written. It was only 3 pages, but she had crossed out so many sentences that the paper looked wounded. She kept saying it wasn't good enough. She said everyone would see through her. She said she didn't deserve to stand there because other people had suffered more. I told her that suffering wasn't a competition. She looked at me in the mirror and asked how I could say that when I had spent the last few months feeling like a failure myself. That question hit harder than I expected. I admitted that I had been hiding too. Losing my job had made me feel worthless. I had stopped answering friends' messages because I was ashamed. Every rejection email felt like proof that my life was moving backward. I had been so focused on my own disappointment that I hadn't realized the person across the hallway was fighting a completely different battle. That night, we sat on the floor of her bedroom and went through her speech line by line. She practiced while I listened. Whenever her voice shook, I told her to start again. Whenever she wanted to remove something emotional, I told her to keep it. Her story didn't need to sound perfect. It needed to sound true. For the first time in months, I felt useful. The next morning, Emma came into the kitchen wearing the blue dress again. She looked nervous, but there was something different in her expression. She wasn't trying to hide the fear anymore. She told me she had decided to speak honestly. At the gala that evening, I sat near the back of the room. Emma walked onto the stage, looked at the crowd, and paused. For one terrifying second, I thought she would run. Then she began. She spoke about her brother, her parents, the strangers who had helped her family, and the responsibility she felt to pass that kindness forward. Her voice cracked several times, but she didn't stop. When she finished, the room became silent for a moment before the audience rose in applause. I was clapping harder than anyone. Afterward, Emma found me outside beneath the warm lights of the entrance. She hugged me tightly and thanked me for helping her finish. I smiled and told her she had finished it herself. But she shook her head. She said sometimes people don't need someone to save them. Sometimes they just need someone willing to stay until they remember how to save themselves. Her words stayed with me. A week later, I received a call offering me a new job. It wasn't the position I had dreamed about, but it was a beginning. When I told Emma, she celebrated as if I had won an award. She reminded me that progress doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as one small opportunity after another. Months passed, and our apartment changed. Not because we bought new furniture or moved somewhere bigger, but because we stopped being strangers sharing a lease. We became friends. Emma continued volunteering with the foundation. I found work I actually enjoyed and started rebuilding relationships I had neglected. We both learned that people can look perfectly fine while carrying invisible scars. Looking back, the most important moment wasn't when I accidentally walked into Emma's room. It wasn't the dress, the gala, or even the speech. It was the moment she trusted me enough to ask for help. And I realized something I had forgotten during the darkest months of my life. Helping someone else stand can sometimes teach you how to stand again yourself. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who may be quietly struggling, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. You never know when a simple message of hope might reach the person who needs it most. And before you go, comment, "I choose kindness," if you believe that sometimes the smallest act of understanding can change someone's entire life. Because we rarely know what another person is carrying behind a closed door, a forced smile, or a quiet, "I'm fine." Sometimes, all they need is one person who doesn't judge them, doesn't rush them, and simply stays. And sometimes, when you help someone finish their journey, you discover that they were helping you finish yours all along.